6 p.m. on Monday, April the 16th, 2018. We'll call to order the Liquor Control Board meeting for the City of Winooski. And we'll ask that everybody please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance led by Deputy Mayor Nicole Mace.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so for tonight we do have a quick Liquor Control Board meeting and then we'll transition to City Council. So if you're here for City Council items, if you hang in there, we will get there. So first up tonight we have approval for an outside consumption permit for Four Quarters Brewing located at 150 West Canal Street. Any issues, concerns to report from staff?
So Brian is here. If you want to speak with him directly. We are working with him on waking windows permits and some other permitting concerns at his location, but we have trust that we can come to resolution and recommend that you award the permit.
Oh. We don't have to ask you any questions unless you really feel like coming up.
I have a quick question.
Yeah, sure.
So is this just for the Waking Windows weekend, or is this to renew
No,
my
this is your
permit?
regular one.
What's that?
This is the regular one.
To renew for the whole year?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
We take care of the Waking Windows in one big bundle. Any questions or concerns from the Liquor Control Board for staff or for Brian as he's here tonight? Seeing here none, any questions, concerns from the public? So seeing and hearing none, I entertain a motion for approval for the outside consumption permit for Four Quarters Brewing located at 150 West Canal Street.
Second.
Motion by Nicole, second by Hal. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, motion carries. Item B, approval of first class liquor license, outside consumption permit, restaurant license, and sidewalk usage permit. We have Sweet Babu LLC for Shauna Rachel Goldberg, located at 25 Winooski Falls Way.
So similarly, we are working with them on some good business practices that were experienced last summer, but believe that they understand the requirements now and recommend approval.
Great. Questions, concerns from the public? Or excuse me, from the Liquor Control Board? Good. Questions, concerns from the public? Good. So seeing and hearing none, I entertain a motion for approval of the first class liquor license, outside consumption permit, and restaurant license and sidewalk usage for Sweet Babu LLC.
So moved.
Motion by Nicole, second by Eric.
Christine.
Oh, Christine, sorry. Just heard from the left. So motion by Christine, second by Eric. Sorry, Janet. Any further discussion? Seeing here none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, motion carries. Then we have approval of the second class liquor license renewals. We have Pam Veneza for Chicks Market at 60 Hickok Street. We have Westco, which is Champlain Farms at 280 East Allen Street. We have Westco, which is also a Fast Stop located at 155 Main Street. For any of these three permits, any concerns expressed or issues throughout the year? Okay. Any questions or concerns from the Liquor Control Board? Any questions or concerns from the public? So seeing and hearing none, I entertain a motion for the slate of renewal approvals for Chicks Market, Champlain Farms, and the Fast Stop.
So moved.
Motion by Christine, second by Hal. Any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, motion carries. Then we have approval of first class liquor license for Drafts and Crafts located at 45 Main Street. We heard, what did we do previously?
So this is a little bit of an odd one. So you previously approved their first year liquor license. It was then, when it was sent to the state, it was not issued in a timely manner. So, and those run until May 1st on. So now they're back for a May 1st renewal, even though they won't start serving until May. So we are actually waiving the fee for this since they never actually were able to use their last year's permit as it was never approved by the state.
Tremendous customer service.
Thank you. So it is technically a renewal even though they won't start serving until the beginning of this permit.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. And seriously, thanks for handling it that way. It's great. Any questions, concerns from the Liquor Control Board? And questions or concerns from the public? So seeing and hearing none, I entertain a motion for approval of the first class liquor license again for Drafts and Crafts located at 45 Main Street.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Eric, second by Christine. Any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, motion carries. All right. And with that, we've concluded tonight's Liquor Control Board Commission meeting. I would entertain a motion for adjournment.
Second.
Motion by Nicole, second by Christine. Any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, motion carries. That concludes tonight's Liquor Control Board meeting. I will switch hats and initiate tonight's Winooski City Council meeting. So we'll call to order the City Council, regular City Council meeting for Monday, April the 16th, 2018. And ask that everybody please stand and join us again for the Pledge of Allegiance led by Deputy Mayor Nicole Mace.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, first up tonight is agenda review. This is an opportunity to move items around or have any adjustments to tonight's agenda. Council, any questions, concerns about tonight's agenda? Okay, so seeing and hearing none.
We did notice, thank you, that we have two Ds, so we're just gonna do D1 and D2.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
Very good. Duly noted. Great, so with that, we'll acknowledge that we have an extra letter there that's not printed. And we will move on to public comment. This is an opportunity for the public to address the council about anything that's not on tonight's agenda. We do have agendas in the back, and we appreciate everybody taking a second to make sure that you sign in, coming in or going out. We appreciate you doing that. This is an opportunity for the public to address the council about anything that's not on tonight's agenda. Anything for folks? Okay. Yes, ma'am.
I think I'll just, Sister Pat McKittrick, just want to tell you that the Winooski Peace Initiative is really grateful for the support that we've been receiving, and that we hope to really have some new projects coming along, especially that'll go through the summer. And our purpose is to bring people together so that we can talk, and once we know people better and we're up, closer to each other, it's much more difficult to say disparaging things when you know somebody. And it's better to, creates better community building. So just want to let you know that we're working on that, and if you have any suggestions, feel free to let us know.
Great.
Thank you.
What's the best contact for that, Sister Pat?
That's it.
Yeah.
Pat.mckitrick@uvmhealth.org.
Great. For those watching at home, if you want to get involved, it's a great opportunity. Thank you as always for all your work.
Thank you. It's a great place to be.
Great. Any other items for public comment? Okay. So seeing and hearing none, we'll move on to tonight's consent agenda. We have 5 items on tonight's consent agenda. We have the approval of City Council liquor control minutes from April 2nd, 2018, the warrants from 4/13/2018, payroll periods from the 25th of March to the 7th of April. We also have the City Council liaison assignments that we discussed in depth, local emergency operations plan, which didn't sound like there was a whole lot of tweaks to be done here. And then a resolution related to Arbor Day, which is commemorating a tree that's going to go into Richards Park on Arbor Day. Actually, it won't be on Arbor Day, it'll be on the 5th of May or 6th. 5th, Saturday, that's also Green Up Day. Any questions or concerns in regards to the consent agenda from council? Any questions or concerns from the public? Okay, so seeing and hearing none, I entertain a motion for approval of the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Nicole, second by Christine. Any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, motion carries. City update.
Great, thank you. I have a number of items for you tonight. First, today we received word that the low-income tax credits that the developers at 268 East Allen applied for were fully awarded. So that's the true mixed-use mixed-use housing development located on East Allen Street up on the other side of the railroad tracks. It's a 39-unit building. 17 of those units are one bedrooms, the remaining are two bedrooms, 12 are market rate, the remaining are affordable to 60% AMI, and 4 of those units are reserved solely for those at risk of homelessness. So it's really that exact kind of mixed-use building we're looking for. The developers are hitting the ground running. They are meeting tomorrow to go over pre-construction documents and intend to break ground in August. So we'll see that coming this summer. Events that Mayor mentioned, Green Up Day is May 5th. Come down to OCC at 9 o'clock and get your bags and visit with your neighbors and plant a tree. Help plant a tree. That weekend also is Waking Windows, the 4th, 5th, and 6th. So just for the public and the council to remember, that's a big weekend here in Winooski. CCRPC is hosting a housing committees convening, they're calling it. So there are a number of housing committees located throughout Chittenden County. So they're, as a result, kind of a next step coming out of a community conversation they had on affordable housing a number of months ago, was bringing all those bodies together. So that will be April 30th at 6 o'clock. We believe it will be at the CCRPC offices here in Winooski, but that has yet to be confirmed. So we'll share that. You're more than welcome to attend that as well. Heather will be going and presenting a few slides on what we're currently working on. Wanted to give you a couple of quick staffing and program administration updates. As you know, we have a planning and zoning administrator vacancy. That position is posted. We are getting some pretty interesting applications for that position, so we're excited about that.
Define interesting.
Some very qualified, intriguing people that we would be happy to welcome to the city.
Right kind of interesting.
As I think I mentioned briefly before, but just to reiterate, John Audie has taken on the interim ZA role in this transition, and Heather and I are heading up planning efforts. I'll talk later in the presentation or in the agenda in the economic development update about the master planning efforts and our plans to move that forward in the interim. Our new assistant city clerk, Angel Lane, started today. She is fantastic. Next time you're in the city, come and say hi to her. She's working full time. She has over 20 years of experience in customer service and management at FedEx, and really brings a lovely, positive attitude and a lot of experience and detail orientation, which we're excited about. Just because our next meeting will be the public hearing for the Main Street revitalization bond vote, wanted to remind you that there will be a community dinner on that project on April 24th at the OCC. If people are interested in coming out and hearing about that project, 6 o'clock, the OCC on April 24th. The public hearing will be at your next regular meeting, and then May 8th is the citywide meeting. In conjunction with Main Street, we are also planning for the Weaver bike lane pilot that will happen late spring. So coordination is happening between Public Works and Local Motion on that. Our community outreach program, which is our partnership with our surrounding communities and Howard Center, will be fully operational by April 30th. The staff has been hired now for about a month and going through training both with Howard Center and the police departments. Has done a number of ride-alongs with our officers, but they will be here and operational by the end of the month. 2 other quick things. One, in the next few weeks and before our next council meeting, all regular employees will also be participating in a 2-hour customer service training. Because we work for all the residents and visitors to Winooski and businesses in Winooski, the leadership team really decided to prioritize customer service training this year. So all employees will be going through 2 hours of that training. And then finally, in kind of exciting news, the Intervale Food Hub, which for those who don't know is located in Burlington, just on the other side of the river, reached out to us because our membership in Winooski is growing. They reached out to the library to be a service delivery hub. So starting in the first week of June, people who register for that Intervale CSA can pick up at the library, which not only brings fresh food closer to our residents, but also may bring some new people into the library. So it's a great partnership. You can sign up. Sign up ends at the end of May. You can sign up through the Intervale Food Hub website.
Great.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. going on? Okay, next up is council reports. I think we started this way last time, so we'll start on the left this time.
Yeah, I was gonna bring you updates from my first meeting with Public Works as liaison, but since John is presenting today, I don't really have any information not already included in there.
Cool.
I don't have any updates.
I think maybe an update on Christina and I met with Jesse and staff regarding various outreach events that are taking place to inform voters ahead of the May 8th vote. And then we've met separately too about kind of presentations and things that will go into how we'll do outreach as well. We have CCTV scheduled for next Tuesday for a show that's going to center around describing the project and the potential votes. So I think you'll see some more items from that. And then the Planning Commission and the Public Works Commission had a great joint meeting where they got a project update that was a lot of good questions that bounced around, and you know, overall I think a lot of really positive enthusiasm. I think right now that's all I'll update.
Public Safety Commission meets tomorrow night, but probably within that area, the biggest update would be the notification we got from the Attorney General's office that following their review of our fair and impartial policing policy, they did not believe that it was in compliance with Act 54, so that's on as a discussion item tonight, so I won't blabber away about it now. Talk about it then.
And no report at this time.
Thank you. And I think just a big heads up, obviously, is folks at home know, hopefully by now, that there will be a music festival in Winooski between now and our next meeting. So obviously, Waking Windows will fire up at the 4th then of May through Sunday. So watch Nixle, traffic advisors. I'm sure all that stuff will be available on the city website, as well as the Waking Windows folks, in terms of any impacts you might see to regular daily life. And as always, we very much appreciate people accepting that the city does this for vibrancy, and that we've approved this permit year after year, because the festival promoters have been very good to work with from a logistic perspective, and have tried to be very thoughtful about the impact to residents. And certainly there will inevitably be a couple residents that get inconvenienced by some portion of it, but we appreciate everybody's patience and paying close attention to any alerts that are out in terms of what you can do to better navigate the city during that time. Okay, and with that, we'll go on to our regular items. So first up tonight, we have appointments for the Green Mountain Transit Board Commissioner and Alternate.
So some context for this appointment. As you know, the council appoints not only commissions, but several key board memberships here in the city, or that the city sits on or participates on. So Green Mountain Transit is our public transit provider in the region. We direct fund them in part and purchase services, and obviously they provide a huge level of service delivery to our residents. We appoint a commissioner and an alternate to sit on that board of directors. Each community in the region does as well. It's a challenging seat to fill because often the meetings are either early in the morning or during the day. So the current alternate is Robert Millar, who is here, and I'm sure will be happy to give some perspective as well if you would like. And I met with candidates. We did a posting for the position. We got 3 applicants. Actually, we got 4 applicants and 1 withdrew. We interviewed. The goals we set for the appointment process were we were really focused on trying to get somebody who uses public transportation to sit on the board. Per Robert's guidance, there isn't that voice at the table at the board right now, and we feel like that's an important voice to add. As well as thinking about somebody who could really connect the dots between some of the big projects going on in the city, like the master plan redevelopment, Gateway Corridor development, and the Main Street project, to public transportation, and make sure those voices were being heard back and forth through municipal planning. So having interviewed with those goals in mind, Robert and I are recommending the appointment of Ebony Neone, who's here tonight, and as an alternate, Ray Coffey as Community Services Director, who can participate when Ebony cannot, from a staffing perspective.
Awesome. Hey, Ebony. Hey, good. Do you want to join us? Where? Up here for the selection? You don't have to if you don't want to.
That's right.
And did Ray not come to give a speech for his candidacy?
Ray was in Utah taking care of his brother. And I believe you are aware of his qualifications.
Yeah. Thank you for volunteering for this position. It's exciting.
Thank you.
What made you interested in serving on the board?
Because this has been my interest for a while since I've started using public transportation. It's given me a whole new understanding of people's plight who don't have vehicles, which a lot of people in the area don't have vehicles. So I have some great suggestions that I would love to be able to suggest.
That's great.
Yeah.
Winooski's got a long history of playing a pretty pivotal role on the board, and including a number of years recently where the chair of the board was from Winooski, so that's great. We're confident you'll be able to fill those shoes very capably. That's exciting. Any questions for Ebony?
No, appreciate your stepping up. Thank you.
Yeah, very appreciative of your time in doing that. Thank you very much.
No problem.
And thank you to Robert and Raghu, who I know is not here tonight, for their past service on the board too. It's really important, as I think Ebony just captured, a lot of people who rely on bus service in the city of Winooski. So, all right, great. Any questions or concerns from the public? Great. So, seeing and hearing none, I'd entertain a motion for approval of the appointments for Ebony for the city's commissioner seat for the Green Mountain Transit Board, and Ray for the Green Mountain Transit Board alternate position.
So moved.
Motion by Hal, second by Nicole. Any further discussion? Hearing, seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, motion carries. Thank you very much. Congratulations.
You're welcome.
Thank you,
Thank you as
Ebony.
well.
Okay, I'm sorry I have to attend another event, so.
That's okay.
Thank
We'll look
you.
forward to staying in touch.
Okay.
Usually we'll ask, see if the members want to come in just once a year and tell us what's going on and all the good work going on at GMT.
Nice. Awesome. See you later.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, item B, approval appointment of Mr. Lau to Community Services Commission.
Yes, so Ayanle is here tonight with us as well. We have a vacancy on a Community Services Commission. The chair of the commission and Afea interviewed Ayanle, and he is here tonight to answer any questions.
Okay.
Good evening, how are you?
I'm doing good, thank you.
Good, good. Thank you for volunteering.
All right.
It's great. What made you interested in the position?
I mean, I lived in Winooski for about 10 years now, and I spent all my teenage years up here. I thought like it would be a good place to like try to help the community and to get involved. So.
That's awesome. I remember you playing basketball at the YMCA years ago too, you know, Parks and Recreation stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I grew up in that environment. I used to play basketball, and I've seen all the different stages that Winooski went through. So.
That's great. Thank you very much for offering to volunteer for the position too.
Yeah.
Questions, Mr. Lau?
No, I just want to say I served on the commission prior to becoming onto the council, and I think it's a very important role, so I'm glad
okay.
you're stepping up to do that. Thank
Okay, and I will take it serious. So.
Great. Big shoes to fill.
you. Size 13.
All right.
Any questions or concerns from the public on the appointment process? So seeing and hearing none, I'd entertain a motion for an allow for appointment to the Community Services Commission.
Second.
Motion by Eric, second by Christine. Any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor please say aye.
Aye.
And those opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Very much. Thank you. Okay, next up we have a new introduction. I'll let Jesse and Chief take it from here.
So we have, in the interest of making sure that you all know your staff and the community knows the staff, we want to bring Michael McCormick, who is our newest police officer, to meet you this evening, and I'll let the chief give a quick bio.
Okay, good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
So this is Officer Michael McCormick. He comes to us from the Chittenden County Sheriff's Department. I started about 5.5 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And interviewed really well. I think he brings a really nice mix of experience and personality to the job, and I think he's going to make a great member of the team.
That's awesome.
Hi.
So, yeah, good evening. I'm Michael McCormick. I'll tell you about myself. Well, for starters, I've been here 5 weeks, and I can tell you I'm having a phenomenal time.
Okay.
I've learned so much already, and the team downstairs, the men and women, are like amazing, so helpful. About myself, though, born in Burlington, from this area, Burlington, Essex is where I grew up. I left the state for a little while, which helped me get some great life experience. I lived in a couple different states, experiencing different like cultures, bigger cities, bigger than what cities we have here, you know. And ultimately found myself back here for school. I went to CCV right here in Winooski, which is great. And like you said, I started my law enforcement career with the Chittenden County Sheriff's Department. That was a great foundation, but ultimately this city is where I'm finding my needs for law enforcement are met with the challenges that you folks have here. So I'm very happy to be on board, and I'm very happy about the future here as well. Yeah.
Welcome.
Yeah, welcome. It's great.
Yeah.
And I think Chief has probably explained it pretty well, but you know, the thing he asked for people to do right is, as good as you are with the police work, you also have to be able to flip pancakes and hand out ice cream cones.
I can give you my resume. It's quite extensive. There's every kind of customer service you could have, food service to restorative justice board, to chain drywall, to valeting cars. I can do everything. But ultimately all that, kind of found me into the right career, which is this. And through those different jobs, I've had to, you know, kind of adapt to different environments, and also battling different like language barriers as well. So
That's awesome. Well, it's exciting to have you, and we're so proud of the model, the community-based policing model that's been used in the department and the results that it's yielded. So it sounds like you're going to be an awesome fit into that, and that's great. And I'm glad you're enjoying it so far. That's key too.
absolutely.
Questions?
Any questions?
McCormick?
No?
Welcome aboard.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
Any questions from the public?
Question?
Please.
I just want to be sure that Rick let you know that you work very closely with the Winooski Peace Initiative. John said, I'm really glad to hear about your talents. Sister Pat and I'll be looking for you. I flashed my lights at one of the policemen, and he said, Sister, we're usually the ones that flash our lights. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. We're excited to have you as part of the team. We appreciate you coming in tonight and saying hello, and we'll look forward to seeing you out in the field.
Oh, yeah, anytime you see me, wave. My name's Michael.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Have a good
Thank you,
evening.
Michael.
You too. All right, we'll pivot into item D, discussion update on fair and impartial policing policy.
So Councillor Covey gave a quick update about this already. This is communication we received the end of last week from the Attorney General's office indicating that the fair and impartial policing policy, as previously approved, is out of compliance with model policy and offering, per the state expectations, that we sit with the Attorney General's office and try and come to a solution that would meet everybody's needs. So the chief and I thought it was important to bring it before you because it was a policy the council had adopted, to say this is where we are. Also, we're hopeful to get some guidance from you about resource allocation here. We obviously have a lot going on with the police department through strategic planning, running an assessment center as of June 1st. Lieutenant Cram will be retiring, or Lieutenant McGivern will be retiring, which will leave us without a lieutenant. So doing some hiring. obviously covering shifts and whatnot. So also entering into negotiations with FOP. So our question for you, and no need to vote, but just some guidance, is how, if you would like us to move forward with meeting with the Attorney General's office, how would you like us to do that from a staffing perspective? An option would be to send myself and the chief to meet with the Attorney General's office, perhaps with representatives from your board. Alternatively, we could hire legal counsel to represent us in those discussions. We will be meeting with a lawyer on the other side, so we could go in that direction as well. But primarily wanted to let you know that this is the feedback we had heard from the Attorney General's office.
Yeah, so I mean, you can see from the email, they want to sit down, right? We don't even know what specifically is going to be cited or what actions are going to be requested. So I would think the first step is just to hear that out, and probably, frankly, report that back, and that's where the decision linchpin is going to come. I mean, this came just in time to get it onto the agenda. So I would think it would be about sitting, listening, and hearing them out, and seeing if it's something that we lay people understand, or if we need to consult with an attorney about before we spend any additional resources there. I think that's the check back here. It would be kind of how I figured that would go. It's an outside agency, so I'm gonna be there as that liaison, but open ears for the rest of it. Sorry, Hal.
Is there any sense of a timeline of how this is gonna come together, or is this an open process?
It's written into the governing statute. There isn't any specific timeline that's laid out regarding this reconciliation process.
Or even what the process is.
Yeah, and I think looking at the email from the from David Scher at the Attorney General's office, it doesn't give us any sort of indication of, like you were saying, what components of the policy there might be pinch points. So I agree with your assessment that the next step is just to sit down and hear what those are.
But I think that would be really more of a listening session than us talking. I think it's hearing what are your issues, and from your perspective, what solutions are you proposing to what those said issues are. And again, if it's not something that can be addressed here before any resources get spent on it, I think the council needs to decide to take that action, because that's not what we did when we passed the policy. Understood.
I would like to request that they put their concerns into writing, so that it's not sort of you guys having to report back on a conversation with the Attorney General's office, but that the request be, when in advance of the meeting, we'd like to see written documentation of the specific areas of noncompliance and the proposed remedy, so that we're not going to bring an attorney to this meeting, but we need to have something that we could then discuss as a council and share with our legal counsel.
I think it's a reasonable request.
My guess is that a proposed remedy on their behalf may be the model policy. So I think if we're looking for solutions to some of the areas by which we unanimously voted to, address those 5 specific areas that we diverged. I mean, who knows? I'll be interested to see what they say, but I absolutely agree, something in writing.
I just think putting you all in the position of having to translate a discussion with the Attorney General's office is a difficult position to be in.
Dangerous game.
And if they are finding that the policy is not in compliance, I think the burden is on them to say where and why. I think we might know that answer, but it'd be good to have it in writing. Thank you.
So, if I'm hearing that, I think we'll just set up a meeting, talk to him, and report back on that.
That's great.
This included the 4 of us.
Yeah, so Eric wanted to be part of that. Any other issue with that? I mean, we can only bring one additional counselor. Is anybody else just chomping at the bit and want to make a forceful argument that they get that opportunity, or it's worked a lot on the issue? But, okay. So seeing and hearing none, we will move forward in that direction. And actually, probably see if it can happen here. We'll talk about that though. And Winooski, to cut down on you guys' transit time and all that good stuff. I think he's a Burlington resident anyway.
He said
he
he'd
offered
come to
to
Winooski.
What's that?
He said he would come to Winooski. so-
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a late afternoon, early evening one, should be fine. Okay, we'll get that set up, and get the ball rolling on that and report back in the next meeting. Assuming we can have it by then. Any questions, concerns from the public? Yes, sir.
Is the letter publicly available? Is it approved?
It is, it's in the package, yes.
Okay.
And
What
it's,
were the five components that you're not in compliance with? Can you discuss that?
So we don't know how many components. The email from the Attorney General's office didn't identify where in the policy they believe it's not compliant with Act 54, just that they believed it was not. So until we have the meeting and hear those and see them in writing, we don't know.
Thank you.
any other questions? Yes.
What does that mean for active policy right now?
We have an existing policy right
Is that
now.
what we do?
Mm-hmm. Yes. And actually, this policy's adopted as stands, so technically this is our policy right now. Other questions or concerns? Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. We appreciate you guys taking the time to bring new staff in too. Thank you for that. We appreciate it. All right, item D, discussion marketing and branding presentation.
You have to turn it on. I fell asleep.
Excuse us while we get the presentation put up. The Marketing and Branding Initiative was commenced in late May 2017, and it's expected to be completed in May 2018. Our consultant is here with us tonight. Mike Bento of Engage Strategies has been working on this project with us, and he'll give us a presentation tonight of where it stands in draft form. Mike has worked with a steering committee of community members and has solicited public input through a range of engagement opportunities that he'll describe more fully in his presentation. Upon completion of the new brand and marketing strategy, myself and the communications coordinator will take leading roles in implementation, and funding for implementation is built into the FY19 budget. An RFP for an improved city website utilizing the new branding was issued on March 26th of 2018, and an award will be made in late May, so the timing will be perfect for that. Jesse Baker, the city manager, Ray Coffey, director of community services, Paul Sarn, the communications coordinator, and I'm the community and economic development officer, have all been playing a lead role in kind of going through the logo process. So you'll see a draft of that this evening. So I'm going to turn it over to Mike Bento. Do you want me to flip the slides, or do you want to flip slides?
No, I can do that.
Okay.
I'm just going to stand.
Yeah, feel free to take.
Good evening, Mr. Bento. Welcome back.
Great to be back.
Yep. I tell you what, with Public Works, you have to make everything in the city work, huh, John?
I'm just a rookie. Great. Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity to do this work, and thank you for having me back. I'm going to walk through about 25 slides pretty quickly, but give you the high level of what we found and what we're recommending going forward. And I think I hope you will feel the sense of excitement that we feel about where this is all headed. So as Heather said, wait a minute.
Joy's there.
Yep, okay. The goal of this was to develop a brand platform and a strategy that would sustain and accelerate the economic revitalization of the city. This year, in great shape, how do we keep things moving forward? The steering committee, Heather mentioned, great input throughout the process. thoughtful, smart, creative folks who really gave us great input. And I do want to say Jesse, Heather, Ray, and Paul were great partners in this process and we worked really well together. They made this fun and a fascinating project, so I'm grateful to them for that. Public input, we did a community dinner at the O'Brien Center that was very well attended. 2 public input sessions at the Senior Center, one with a group of Bhutanese seniors, which was fascinating. We tabled at the Farmers Market in July. I did a little over 20 individual interviews, and this dovetailed with the Economic Development Resident Survey that happened last summer. Both the economic development firm and us use that data. So all of that is the inputs. You know, the overview of what we found, Eric, at the community dinner, you tweeted, "Our brand is our people." And that absolutely emerged in all of this work. That is the truth of Winooski. In everything that everyone I talk to, there's this remarkable continuity of values and traditions. And across very different cultures, ethnic groups, ages, these threads emerge, these common threads, and I'll get to some of them. What we heard and what is clearly part of the brand is there's a very high value placed here on building and sustaining community. More than just economic development, it's about community. And a depth and richness to that that's really powerful. There's a deep commitment to openness and inclusivity, and like I've never seen anywhere else, you folks don't just talk this talk, you walk the walk in a way that doesn't happen in many other places. I really want to give you that perspective. It just doesn't happen in other places. There's a citywide culture of humility, which I don't really want to change, but I wish you would knock it off a little bit. There's so many spectacular things about this community, and at the city level, at the schools level, you're all very modest and matter of fact, and I want to push you to tell the story of what happens here, what the legacy of this community is, and what you've accomplished. So humility is a great value, but occasionally you could step a little outside of it. And even in the interviews and research where people had areas of concern about direction of what might be happening, those were always tempered with optimism. There's this overall sense that the city's going in the right direction. So how does that translate to a brand? And the pieces of the brand are the brand story, a tagline, and then a visual image. The brand story that we've developed is this. For almost 100 years, Winooski has welcomed strivers, people looking to build a better life for themselves and their families. We're a small city where neighbors know each other. We're a city where all of our kids learn together, play together, grow together. We're a community where everyone can participate in city government, in neighborhood potlucks, in our lively downtown. We're always striving to improve our city and to welcome our next new neighbors. That's the common threads that emerged across all of these conversations. That is a unique and differentiating statement. I don't know of another place that can say that. I'll stop a minute and see how those words ring.
True.
Yeah, it's a good job.
Yeah, I think for me, this encompasses this idea that we're very human scale here in Winooski. So everybody really matters.
Yeah. And this sense, strivers this is a place that creates, and you'll hear the word opportunity in a minute, this is a place that has, for 100 years, has created and provided opportunities for people. And that's not, it is really a 100-year legacy, and that's a through line in your history, and it's unique to you. So, boiling that down to a single statement, the tagline, Winooski is Vermont's opportunity city. And the proof points to that are this 100-year legacy of providing opportunity to successive waves of new Americans. Really 100 years of new Americans. And that means opportunity for individuals, for families, for businesses, and for the city itself. It's a city on the rise. And that you have uniquely this culture of constant innovation grounded by long-held values. Even the dome, which is certainly an innovative idea and one you're known for, when you go back and look at it, the value behind that was that everybody would benefit. It wasn't someone's get-rich-quick scheme. It was someone's idea for how do we make all of us better. That exemplifies Winooski. So from this language, then how do we capture that in an image? And this is by and away the hardest part of these projects, is coming up with the image. You already have strong organizational brands. The city's brand, Downtown Winooski. The school district has a new logo that they're finalizing. What there wasn't was this broad umbrella logo that captured everybody's story, everybody's brand. And if you think about it, it's sort of like New York has for the I Love New York campaign, or Michigan now, their economic development is Michigan Pure. There needed to be a shared tool used to define and promote Winooski. So this is the draft of the logo. And let me tell you a little bit about the elements and the thinking to this. So it's the river, the bridge, the mill. It is uniquely Winooski. We wanted to capture a sense of place, because place here is powerful. It captures, the mills suggest this 100-year legacy, the mill town, this 100-year legacy of opportunity. It's also the legacy of community building. And Rita Martell really schooled me in this in a really interesting way. That the mills were about more than economic opportunity, they were about community building. That may not have been their purpose, but people from different families and neighborhoods and churches came together in the mill, and that formed community. So this logo is about both economic future and a commitment to continuing to build community here. Thoughts?
It's fresh. That part of it's exciting. I mean, I like the mills do so much to define our recent history, and it's an interesting progressive step. And I was looking at this week, and I couldn't help but think it's benchmarking a new historical perspective, whereas our current logo looks all the way back to the Abenaki Indian tribes that settled on the waterfront to collect the onions that grew here, right? And it's this benchmarking a more recent history that is maybe more relevant. I don't know. I'm careful not to get into design.
And I
Critiquing.
You know, Heather and Jesse and Paul and Ray will agree. It is the hardest part of this process. We went down a few roads that we had to turn back. It's hard to capture it. But when we got here, in all different ways, in different offices, we were all like, oh, this is the one, this is the one. Let me show you how it begins to play out and where it goes. So the marketing strategy that then follows has 4 key points. First, leverage the tremendous strengths of this community to build community pride. Second is to create a platform to tell stories. And I was really influenced by Dan Higgins' work and some other efforts like that to capture and tell stories here. To frankly address the challenges you have with facts. There are some challenges, and continue to be straightforward about them, but maybe, and I'll show you some ways to do a better job talking about some of those challenges, and then build the tools to attract targeted businesses and residents. So that happens along 3 pillars. First, the city, and I'll talk about ways to strengthen the communications capacity of the city. The school district wasn't technically part of this project, but at the same time, they were doing their own project with a consultant that was funded on a grant. We worked together and have really dovetailed nicely and come up with some joint recommendations, because the schools are a big part of the reputation of the community. And then the last piece I'll talk about is this legacy campaign, and I'll come back to that. So the city, boiling it down internally to 3 key messages. This city provides residents with a broad range of high-quality services. The city operates on deeply held values of transparency and openness, and that you have a broad tradition of civic participation. That's the messaging internally. And now you're going to say a lot of other things, but that gives you the framework to unify all of those other things. Externally, as we look at outside of this community into the region to prospective residents and businesses, you want to talk about what this is: a vibrant small city offering an appealing environment for individuals, families, businesses, and corporations. The importance of affordable opportunities for locating a business, renting an apartment, or buying a home. That is one of your competitive edges. This, on all 3 of those points, business, renting, or buying, you are affordable where others aren't, particularly in a vibrant small city environment. And then the third differentiator is the streamlined and rational policies for zoning and permitting that balance protecting quality of life with encouraging investment. You are the envy of some of your neighbors for that, and that should be a strong part of your message externally. Delivering those messages, you've got great relationships locally already with local and regional media, continuing to build on those. Your social media, for a city this size, your social media is as good as it gets. You're continuing to grow and deepen that. One of the places that you could go deeper is around storytelling, profiling local citizens to make the point about interconnectedness and the through lines. And a couple examples here. So I met a longtime resident, a native, at the senior center who now serves on the restorative justice panel. That's an example of the longest resident doing some of the newest, most innovative work of the community. In the same way, and I gather he moved, unfortunately, because he was a great example in this PowerPoint, but there was a new American citizen who served as a volunteer firefighter. You know, one of the oldest institutions in town, being staffed by new arrivals. These pieces that drive a narrative of the integration of the community, and that give you an opportunity to model behavior and draw people towards it. I'm going to talk in a minute and give you an example of infographics, but there's some storytelling techniques that would help. As Heather said, your website is already in the rebuild process. You guys jumped ahead quickly on this because it needed it. But infographics, there's a lot of numbers. It's hard for people to grasp numbers, and I'm going to give you an example. One of the things that I heard consistently was concerns about crime, and the comparison set. This is Department of Justice data, and if you take the crimes per 1,000 people and look at Vermont on the left, Winooski numbers 2 from the left, South Burlington, all United States, and then Burlington, you get a relative sense of what the crime issue is. Now, 25 crimes per 1,000 is too many. You're working to combat that, but it does give people a sense of where are we in comparison, as opposed to where were we in comparison when we grew up. So this is an example of infographics that can do a better job telling a story, that give people a visual picture. There's an opportunity to do more externally in terms of business media, telling the good news story beyond Burlington and the immediate area, going to regional media in the Northeast, targeting the business media, looking at trade publications, conferences. You have a huge success story here, and getting it out will draw more success. You haven't had the bandwidth, and there's a staff bandwidth issue here. In the best of all possible worlds, you'd get to a business-to-business website, business-to-business social media, but there's a capacity issue. So think of those as an in the future bucket, but the future's not too far off on that. So that's telling the story from the city side, from the schools. And there, as I said, they've got an effort underway. That needs to be supported, and I'm sure will be, by the city and integrated into communications efforts you're doing here. So they're launching a new website. They have great content. You have great social media. There's an opportunity to use your social media to tell their story. And their story, and I can't tell you how the 2 or 3 times I went up to the schools and sat with Sean, how fired up I was by what's going on up there. Winooski Schools really is a regionally respected, innovative school system that's providing high-quality 21st century education to students of all abilities and backgrounds. I live in Washington, D.C. I can describe the Winooski schools to high-resource parents in a way that makes them think, that must be the best charter school ever invented, and how do I get my kids in there? When you talk about student-centered project-based learning, farm-to-table cafeteria, wellness program for teachers and for students and teachers, they have cracked some nuts up there that American education hasn't figured out anywhere else. They are incredibly humble, and they focus all their time on teaching and learning, not on telling their story outside. They need some help with that because it's a great story. Data will show some of that, and picking the data apart. So things like graduation rates don't look great when you take them as a whole, but as you begin to disaggregate that data, there's really good stuff in there. And they need some help doing that. The other piece, and this is an opportunity for them with their PTO, if you go on the school rating sites like Great Schools, it's based on 3 or 4-year-old data. The numbers aren't good. And the parent comments are 3 or 4 years outdated. So without spamming those sites, there's an opportunity to get engaged and give parents looking at moving here more up-to-date information about the strengths of the school system. Now, the last piece of this is this legacy campaign. Normally, in an economic development project like this, what I'd be showing you now is some snappy ad that you would run in Boston and Manchester and Portland and New York, the come to Winooski, everything's great in Winooski. What we've done is actually flip that on its head and say, instead of running out there in the world to say, we're great, you should come here, put energy, focused energy, into celebrating here what is great about this place. And build this community in a way then that others will see it and be attracted to it. So, with the centennial coming in 4 years, that gives you a milestone. What we're recommending is creating this campaign that builds pride in a shared narrative about Winooski. 100 years of welcoming strivers, this tight-knit community, and a culture of always wanting to do better. This campaign would be broadly owned by the community, with a steering committee driving it. And what it is it becomes a platform then to celebrate the traditions and cultures of this city in a way that says everyone's story here matters, which is important internally and the best message you could be putting out there in the world externally. 3 tracks to it. The first one is traditions, and as I said, between the Historical Society's book, Dan Higgins' projects, other similar efforts, collect the stories. Go to the next place in storytelling, oral history, family photos, archives, and 2 examples. And I've teed up a couple examples in this to spark thinking and then let the community take this in its own direction. But imagine if you know the NPR StoryCorps, they have a curriculum that they provide to schools. Imagine juniors and seniors at the high school interviewing retired mill workers in a StoryCorps format to capture their story. It would be a chance for these young people to learn about the history of the community, to capture it, and it would be a chance for seniors to meet the extraordinary young people who are in the school system. So it cross-fertilizes both ways. Imagine the senior center hosting a luncheon talking about all the lost traditions. A lot of traditions that the older folks grew up with and have sort of slipped away. let's capture them, let's talk about them, and let's think of some of the ones that they want to bring back. The churches could play a big role in this. So capturing that information is in the traditions track. Cultural events. You have great models already with French Heritage Day and Saraswati Puja. That's a model to be replicated and invite lots of other communities to do the same thing. Not by having the city organize it, but by creating a simple toolkit, some easy pathways for people to say, you are invited to do the same thing, here's the process, here's a little mentoring from these other groups to get you going. So you could do that by cultural communities. You could look at some themes that cut across cultures, like sports. And again, everywhere, it was fascinating, the history and in talking to people, sports are a big deal. Bingo, cricket, baseball, always have been unifying and community building forces in this city. So imagine if the Bhutanese Softball League could host an old-timers game with former high school all-stars. And you begin to have that conversation happening that way. Or a garden tour. In one of the, I literally left Scout a conversation with Raghu talking about his father and his father's garden and the seed bank, walked down the hill to meet with Rita, and Rita was talking about how gardens were so important. I'm like, I just had the same conversation with two very different people. How do we bring this together? So imagine a garden tour. And there's some sillier tactics. There used to be a mustache club that one of the churches had here. So if the downtown businesses had Mustache Mondays, and people with mustaches or facial hair, and I clearly have a dog in this fight, got a drink special or something like that. You could make it fun. The idea is to animate the city with events celebrating the culture and history of this city, all sorts of them. And then the third track are places. And it was fascinating. I heard about the Heights and the Flats and Cork Alley and Fort Pitt. I heard all sorts of things about Chicks Market. And what fascinates me about Chicks is for 50 years, teenagers, I think mostly boys, have been hanging out outside of Chicks. And the teenagers hanging out there 50 years ago are no different than the teenagers hanging out there now. How do we begin to create that dialogue between them? There are places in this community that have been important for 100 years or for many years. How do we commemorate them, mark them, tell those stories? I don't know the places, but I'll bet you do. I'll bet folks here do. There are rooming houses or apartment houses in this city that have been the starting place, the beachhead for successive waves of families. How do you begin to tell those stories? And these are all, the point of all this is, these are stories that tie us together, that connect people together and create that shared narrative that is true. So how it all works, I've laid out a broad framework with the idea that local folks will now grab hold of it, get creative, and within these broad boundaries, adapt it. Steering committee will provide overall guidance. Content's collected and curated online, on the new city website, social media, and on all of the partners. So downtown Winooski, the library, school district, they all have share content on their website and social media. The brands, how they work together now, the institutional brand, the city's seal, continue to strengthen the use of that. There are places like the senior center where it's not clearly branded as being the city. Tighten up on some of that so what the city is doing is even clearer. And then the new logo, this promotional brand, is owned by the city but is licensed without charge to all partners. And it's used by the city and other partners to brand this legacy campaign and to project yourself out there, to promote externally. Just a couple examples of this is how it would look on a Facebook page. This is an example of co-branding. There's a terrific, these things come together pretty nicely. There's an event happening on teaching people to tell stories. It's being sponsored by Recreation and Parks Department. This is how that sponsorship would get branded under the campaign. So the next steps, we're finalizing the report and developing an implementation matrix, step-by-step, short, medium, and long-term activities, a usage guide for the logo, standing up this steering committee, and then continuing to work with the city team to support implementation of these things. So I'm going to stop and we can have a discussion. I want to come back to the unique nature of this approach. Instead of the ads that say, we're terrific, come here, this is about building this community and celebrating this community. And we're arguing that is the strongest form of economic development marketing you can do. I'll stop.
Thank you. So I think maybe now we'll open it up and see if there's questions, comments, thoughts on sort of direction proposed here. The legacy campaign, something we've kind of talked about in general, is how do we address the impending huge birthday. And I think there was really wide feeling that the city was in need of a bit of a refresh that's a little bit more reflective of what's going on in the city today in terms of the way we're presenting ourselves to the outside world. So I want to thank you for your work. It's clear that you actually learned about the community, and with all due respect to, you know, a lot of contractors, sometimes that's not the case. Sometimes people roll in with a canned something that they insert the words into, and then that's what you get, and we appreciate the amount of thoughtfulness that you clearly applied to the approach and the amount of time it took to learn those things, so thank you. All right, guys. Thoughts? Questions for Mike in terms of how they landed on items, or for Heather?
Just so we're clear, the logo would not replace the city seal that we typically use to brand our agendas, or even our website, that would still be used for a specific set of circumstances, but this other image would be used across departments and organizations. Can you talk a little bit about the red, white, and blue color scheme? Was that discussed at all?
So the blue, and we played with lots of color schemes. The blue is the river.
Yeah.
But we were not going for a flag, red, white, and blue. We struggled a lot with the brick red of the mill and went darker than the flag red. And also looked at the colors, both so that we could render this in black and white, and so that it's recognizable from a distance. So, and the white and the black did that for us.
So I'm not sure where to address this question. I'm following like the storyline of using this in, in a centennial campaign. But I wonder what like the original problem that we were trying to address here is, as something that like predates my time. Like I understand the misconceptions about the school and crime, but are there other things that we were trying to address through like a rebrand?
I can speak to that a little bit. I mean, I'll speak for myself, but coming in, one of the first things that struck me in my position was that I felt that we weren't telling our story well. And that I would hear negative things, and then I would see the complete opposite as a fresh set of eyes. It wouldn't ring true to me at all. And so one thing that I was hoping through this was for us to start speaking with a common voice from Winooski in a much more positive way about ourselves. Some of that being the humility that Mike was mentioning, so when I heard stories about crime here, I looked into the crime stats, and realized you are safer standing in any single place in Winooski than you are on Church Street in Burlington. So I didn't understand why that concern about this community. So I think this, at least for me, was very much about telling our story better, both internally and externally.
Yeah.
And it was, in the early part of this, we looked at the range of language and descriptors, and it was all over the map, both from the city and what people in the community were using. So one of the ones that particularly bugs me is, and we saw this in real estate listings, Winooski is the Brooklyn of Vermont.
Yeah, I've heard that.
It's not, you are not derivative, you are not comparative, you are who you are. So this process was, what is that, are who we are? How do we, what's the language we want to put around that to define us, not in comparison or in comparison to somebody else, but purely as ourselves.
And is there already buy-in from like downtown Winooski or school or these various organizations to like work together on this front, or is that in the next steps?
I think there's, I mean, and this is another one of those things that from the outside, I'm struck by how knit together you all are already. And first of all, everybody knows everybody, but the last time I was up here, sitting, having my dinner at Waterworks, met the owner who talked about what he was doing with Sean, having cultural programming going on in the restaurant. These things are all, there's both appetite for it and it's already happening.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
I also said the most prominent brand that was created was when we did the downtown Winooski logo, like that. Oh, and that was a painful process. But it was designed by a resident. Came with a number of different logo ideas, and it really made a difference. For lack of a better word, it energized people, and it gave people something common visually to rally upon, which I thought was really positive. One thing I've been really vocal, first branding update concepts discussions I was in was around planning. And I think where we've really failed is linking planning efforts together in a coherent way for people to understand that they're all feeding into a succinct strategy. And when you keep asking people the same questions with no, or different questions with no clear visual stamp that says we're heading in this direction towards this one thing, you criticize the process or whatever you like. Plan B TV was extremely well executed from a production standpoint because people they knew when they saw that logo on something that they were feeding into that larger process. So I think this is kind of interesting because it's the duality of it, which I think keeping two logos. Can you talk about that a little bit in terms of the seal versus a full-out replacement? I'm just curious.
And go back to, Michigan Pure and I Love New York and things like that. There will always need to be the government logo and voice. There are things you're going to speak about that are purely a function of the city government, that are not in any way promotional. But you need to have some platform and voice that is promotional and celebratory, and that's where the difference comes.
And structures, water, no people. Did you guys talk about that?
We actually didn't.
Didn't come up? Yeah. It's okay. Some do, some don't. South Burlington's got like a very humanistic one, right? There's people doing things on there. Some don't. I don't know.
What Mike didn't tell you is that we went through a very elaborate process with the logos, and they went back to the drawing board, I think, a couple times. And I was actually calling Mike with feedback saying, please don't fire us. It was a very long process to get to this.
I think beyond the logo, the notion of having a story to tell, so I'm really appreciative of the the lengths you went to talk to people in this community, because I, as I said earlier, that rings true for me. And I haven't been here for much more than a decade, but that resonated with me. And I think, when I think about the potential development and changes, number one, the changes that we've been through, but the changes that are on the horizon, in the absence of a common story and thread that sort of binds us as the changes occur, we could lose the things that we celebrate today. So whether or not, how we use a logo, to me, is less important than that plan around how is it that we tell the story and celebrate what it is that makes this community special. So, thank you.
Well stated.
I'm interested to see those tools and how we tell the story, how that actually comes out. Definitely think it is really important to kind of honor our history as well, but make sure that we also do that in a sensitive way, that there are a lot of people here who share very different histories and what brought them to Winooski and what their experience in Winooski has been too. And similarly too, and I remember being at that community dinner as well, hearing that what a lot of people celebrate is the composition of our community right now and the vibrancy and thriving this right now. So absolutely celebrating our history too, but making sure we're also celebrating that we have this long-standing history as a mill town, and I like the connection of that, the community thought, bridging that to also those values are what we're celebrating as that community and what it does to drive our city forward right now. It's really interesting, and I can't wait to see how it pans out.
I'll give you an image that occurred along the way. If you think of the mythical "Welcome to Winooski" sign, and under it, welcome in a series of successive languages, starting with Abenaki and Irish and French, and for 100 years, this community has added new languages, but always with hooks at the bottom for the next set of languages. And that's really special.
In that vein, I think your two examples about the New American Volunteer Firefighter and Senior Center working on new initiatives, I appreciate those points, or that line of storytelling, to sort of bridge the gap amongst communities here. Because I think there are a lot of people that really value all the differences here, but then we still have some gaps there where people are not intersecting, and making those connections for them could be helpful.
I think this is great work, and I think communicating it is going to be really important, and I hope we can be creative and sensitive on doing it in a way to communicate orally, so others who don't speak English can experience what we're celebrating and share it in their tongue as well. So whether it's a QR code or whatever, there's other ways that you can tap in, and people throughout our community can really be a part of this.
If I can add one thing, back to Christine's comment. So Heather and I spent an hour today with Dan Higgins talking about his project about telling the stories of who we are, which is running in parallel in conjunction to this. And we just spent a lot of time talking about what you just said. How do we use art and branding and all the community events to make those connections between people? So it's not just capturing a story and putting it somewhere. It's telling a story to connect it to another story. And I think we're early in that. I don't think we have the answers, and I don't think we are going to have the answers. I think that's where this becomes kind of a relinquishing control to the community to see what the community does with it. But I think there's some really interesting conversations to be had about that using the stories to connect the people.
That's how, I mean, not to preamble something that's now rebooting a little bit, but with the municipal plan, that was the direction and vision the planning commission was going down towards too, is making it more of a narrative focused document that had all the technical benchmarks necessary to complete a plan, but really focused on the experience of the people living here, doing business here. That's good feedback. I'm in positive feedback.
Thanks.
And now the thought is that this is something that wouldn't just be used for the legacy campaign, but shared by all those different groups beyond too, right? Because it kind of reminds me of, you know, if you drive through a, you know, downtown street or something in some city and they have the banners up along the side of the road, that's the kind of image you
Sure.
see on that,
Yep.
with the brand of the city.
So, kind of along those, the way I think about this is the Stowe Swish. You know, if you picture this, everyone can picture that logo in their mind, and it's very referential to what happens in that community. And I think, you know, as Heather said, we had a lot of conversations about the logo and a lot of iterations, and kept coming back to the mill because, to a great extent, it is how people think of the city. It is that fundamental image. So we were presenting this kind of in a haphazard way to the leadership team last week. And the police chief looks down and says, wait, I already came up with this. And the mill is on the public safety badges. And, you know, we don't necessarily think of that connection. But I think it is really fundamental to what others perceive as our community and what we as our community perceives.
It's iconic.
Iconic.
But do keep in mind both aspects of the mill as both the economic engine and the community building engine.
Other questions, thoughts?
So we resourced some of this work to a certain degree. This is a question for Heather and Jesse. Sort of, how do you see operationalizing some of these recommendations and within the resources that you have?
I saw that as next steps with the short-term, interim, and long-term.
Yeah, similarly to the way that we did the economic development strategic plan, that matrix is an unbelievably helpful tool that I'll speak about actually in the next segment. But we'll have a similar tool, so we'll have things that have been prioritized as the immediate pieces of that, and we'll be able to direct our attention in that manner. In addition to that, in the economic development matrix, what they did is divide it out by lead department, because some of those things are not within my purview, and so that's also been broken down and given out to each individual department. So I think, you know, it'll be a matter of first seeing the matrix and then breaking it down in a similar way. So there will be a long range plan as well as an immediate term plan.
Great. But I do want to just call your attention to, you have already invested in this to a large degree. You know, we have built money into the FY19 budget for the new website rebrand. We've invested in Paul and having that position fully staffed. You know, I know the schools have invested or are looking to invest some money in communications. I think that so while there will be tasks associated with all of that, I think we have the kind of human and resource infrastructure, at least for FY19, to continue this. And then, you know, I think we are incredibly fortunate to have Paul on board. I think his skill set naturally ties in with this, and then thinking about Dan Higgins' work and some of the public art task force work we've been talking about, and what the Winooski Peace Initiative is, you know, all of these pieces very quickly could start lining up with not a whole lot of additional infrastructure needed.
Thank you.
Other questions for Mr. Bento or for
I have
Heather?
one more.
Sure.
In one of the preceding slides, there was mention of like creating a toolkit or something so that folks could easily replicate like the French Heritage event, etc. Is that something that should be in next steps, or like that's under consideration?
So I have assembled pieces of it from some other contacts, Main Streets people that I know, and I'm going to provide that to Heather. I think some of that exists in your existing permitting process
Okay.
for events. So it's pulling that together.
Okay.
But if I can use that opportunity to also say, I think it's, who's the, Eric, you're now the liaison to downtown Winooski?
Yes.
Yes. So I think one of the voices that is critical to the success of that is downtown Winooski. And I think part of the next step conversation is what role will we as the city play and what role will they as our promotional arm play. And Kelsey's been involved in this, Maura was involved in this, but I think that that's articulating that is really important. Because I think often people who want to do events go to downtown Winooski at the same rate they might come to us. So how are we as the city putting into place clear communications about how you close streets and how you request services and that kind of thing, but also ensuring that our partner organizations who may hear of people interested in doing things first have that same information. It goes back to that kind of quality improvement process mapping we talked a little about last time.
Other questions, thoughts, or items for Heather, Mike, Jesse as they move forward? If you're not approving anything, it looks like we'll look forward to a final report and the matrix coming forward. Is there anything else specific you wanted feedback on that you feel like we missed? I mean, I think overall, since it's really impressive work and a great direction, and it is building upon something I think we already recognize the importance of, that narrative piece, and how that can really move mountains if done correctly, and can be a really unifying thing to do for the community. So it's very exciting, and really appreciate all the work.
And I want to say thanks for the opportunity to do it. This was soul-feeding work,
Good.
which doesn't always happen.
So now we'll also turn to the public, see if there's any questions, comments, or concerns from the public in regards to the update on the our marketing and branding. Yes.
PowerPoint available?
Absolutely, yes. At winooskivt.org, it's in the package. Starts
Good.
around page 28 or so.
I really appreciated all the hard work that's gone into this, and I'm excited to see how the Winooski Peace Initiative will fit into this very easily. The storytelling, the photos, the opportunity to see our values and traditions. I think that's really important. I have to say, for the logo, I was a little surprised there wasn't a little bit of green in there. I think we talk so much about environment and the green areas around and people. I was, I kind of feel that we talk about community building, and I know you can't put everything in a little logo, but somehow I just, it seems to me it'd be a warmer something to it, but I understand that. I was surprised to see bingo listed as a sport. I haven't seen that before in my life. I would have to come to Winooski to find that that's a sport. Other than that, I love the storytelling idea. That's part of what we were working on also with some people to get people to tell their stories. We realize that we have a richness and diversity, but we often have a lot of silos. So how do we connect? Thank you.
Yes, it's really.
I also found it was very well done, and congratulations. But I was disappointed that on that logo there wasn't the falls. This is really the falls of this river, and it's beautiful. I don't know.
That's the blue. That's the blue.
Doesn't show up. It doesn't give the falls the way it should. I'm not an artist, but I think and I would have put the bridge, the Winooski up higher and the bridge closer to the water. But it's the falls that I would like to see, because that's rather unusual for such a small city. And you can see it from the bridge. So.
Right.
Thank you. Other comments, thoughts, or suggestions as we move forward?
I have to say, I appreciated your saying this was a soul-feeding experience for you. That's rich and touching.
Yeah. Great. Thanks for your time. Thanks for coming today. Thanks for all your work. We appreciate it. And it's exciting.
Thank you.
All right. So next up, we have strategic priorities update, economic vitality.
Okay, so this is our second update on economic vitality, and in your packet you have a memo from Jesse and myself. There are 4 priority strategies that we have listed in the table in your packet. They are to develop a municipal plan, master plan, complete and implement the economic development strategic plan, implement the parking study, and to address potential gentrification through master plan, housing policy, and planning, and the economic development strategic plans. So I will just give you a brief update on these and some of the other strategies that we've made priority as well. Developing a municipal plan and master plan. Do you want to take that one, Jessica?
Sure. So I gave you in this packet at the on the final page of the report a schedule that Heather and I have put together since Paul Dreher left to accomplish the municipal plan overhaul before it expires in April 2019. So that's the goal we're working towards. So with the Planning Commission at the last meeting last week, we went over this schedule with them. And also committed, as you know, we applied for a municipal planning grant to support the master plan work. So with those resources already identified, we'll bring on a consultant to work with us throughout the entire municipal plan process. So not just until we hire staff, but through bringing you a municipal plan to consider. That will give us some continuity during a transition period, as well as some expert guidance and technical assistance in the transition, but also as a new person comes on to support them in the work. So pretty much what that looks like is about 2 months of onboarding a consultant to help us with that work, about 5, which is going to run in parallel to the work the commissions are currently doing to broaden our community aspirations. 5 months of prioritization, public process, drafting, looking at the data, looking at the plans already written and how those plans will be integrated into the master plan. And then there's about 5 months of required public process through state statute that we'll go through. So that's where we are. I think the Planning Commission was pretty, received well this schedule and the concept of bringing on some additional support to work with the city staff and the Planning Commission on this process. And we will be moving forward in that direction. Much more to come. Does anyone have any questions about that? Because I do know that there was some concern, especially with the staffing change, about staying on track with the master plan process.
It's aggressive, and I think we're going to have to constantly monitor and weigh in, and I think, you know, what we promised to do this time for the community is not slap something together just to pass a plan, which is what we've done for the last plans, which is why we have the plan we have today. So I think we're, you know, this one to me is it's a red on here. I think if there's ever been a red item for our list, this one's it. And I think we just need to be really honest with that, because we're also asking a lot in terms of staff resources now to pull this back into range. But with all of that said, and that sounds really negative, there's been a lot of really great work done along the way. So we have so many components that have been done so well that it's really about pulling those together more than it is creating new material and writing something from scratch. We don't have to sit and say, hey, what should transportation look like? We spent a significant amount of time, resources, and effort doing that. Same thing with zoning. So I have nothing but pure confidence in the staff capabilities and steering that forward, and we have a really sharp planning commission. But it's aggressive. How's that for a wet blanket? Any other questions for Jesse and Heather? Just in general, I thought this was great. You did a great job with the write-up overall. It was really informative and did a good job in reminding me of some of the stuff that you're doing that we don't always get to talk about each and every time, so thanks.
Happy to go through any of it that you have questions about.
I have some questions just about the parking study.
Sure.
So there was some recommendations in the study, I recall, in terms of sort of assessing usage within the garage, looking at signage. So I'm wondering sort of where that sits in the work. I don't remember. And I'm interested in how you see the shared parking app as like fitting into the general, those recommendations.
So all those things you mentioned sit solely on my desk. So I take full responsibility for the progress or lack thereof made to date. That's my responsibility. So I think they're interrelated in a couple of ways, and we have not. The progress we have made has been to allow some of those interrelated things to go forward. For example, we didn't want to re-sign the garage until we knew what we were going to do for branding and marketing. We wanted to start with a parking app because it's something that people have been talking about a lot, and it is a way for us to integrate with our surrounding communities. So moving to Park Mobile allows us to go onto the same platform that Burlington and UVM are both on. So when we think about our users of our system, that's a significant customer service win for them. As we brought on that app, one of the things we learned was that it could be used for access control in the garage. And so now the question is for the garage users, is that how they want to manage access control? So basically what that means is when they drive in, if they kind of click on here, we could be tracking that at no cost, as opposed to a traditional access control system where there's a gate and costs associated with that. And then finally, quite frankly, the other big thing I've been working on about parking is trying to figure out how to build new municipal parking. So as we figure that out, having a new access control system inform that building as well.
Any other questions for Heather and Jesse on update? Questions, concerns, comments from the public? Thank you for all of your work. Appreciate it. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Good job.
All right, item F, discussion of the Public Works 2018 summer work schedule update.
So we wanted to, kind of coming off the budget cycle, and with John starting, give you a very high-level summary of what work will be underway this summer. I know in the past there's been some concern about having a good understanding of what shovels in the ground and planning efforts you might see over the course of the summer. So John has put this together, so he'll walk through this quick presentation, and then your following agenda item is actually a step we need you to take for one of these projects. So these two items are related.
Okay, so if summer does get here, we do have some projects going forward. So the projects I'm going to go through are just kind of the highlighted projects for the summer that are actually going to be performed. So we've got a lot on our drafting table right now, but these are the projects you're going to see being implemented for this year. So on the capital side, we've got quite a bit of investment going on in the treatment plant facility this year. We also have some maintenance and repair work going on for the Winooski River Bridge, and then we do have our annual street repair paving program. So the Winooski River Bridge, we are looking to repair the railing and some of the sidewalk sections along the bridge. So you'll see on the eastern side, some of the bridge railing is decayed or missing. So that's the work we're looking to target for replacement. And we also have some sidewalk replacement work that's going to be done in conjunction with that. So this is through a V-Trans Structures grant that we're we're doing a 50-50 split with City of Burlington. So currently our share, it's a 10% grant match. So we're targeting about $30,500 that'll be coming out of the city coffers for that project. So we're targeting starting work June 4th. We received bids April 10th. So we're currently reviewing those bids, and you should see probably during that first May meeting some bids coming to you for authorization. This project, it's pretty straightforward. I mean, it's just a replacement and maintenance project, but it will create some traffic issues. So that's a big part of this project is getting the information out that, you know, we may have situations where we have to close a lane. So we're planning to use some of the portable changeable signs. In the contract, we do require that 14 days before any lane closures that each side of the bridge is notified. We'll have signage on each side and notify drivers. We'll definitely be working with the downtown groups, kind of get that message out even further ahead of time. So that's probably the more difficult part of this project, or challenging part, is making sure we notify those folks of potential lane closures.
So, two other quick points to make on this one. Because this is a 50-50 project split with Burlington, we've had a lot of conversations with them and working in close cooperation. We are doing the administrative support for this project. So while they secured a grant and we secured the grant, and the total of those two grants is what enables us to do the work, they are accepting our procurement process, and we are managing the administrative work. So we're trying to be good neighbors in this effort. Can you talk briefly about what's going to be happening on the other side of the bridge?
Yeah, so it's great timing. So Burlington, they are going to be performing water main replacement work on Colchester Ave, and also repaving all of Colchester Ave. Hopefully, before this project gets rolling. I did see that they may start that work hopefully in the next couple of weeks here. So when I say there'll be some traffic issues, you know, we will have to communicate that well with the public and coordinate that Burlington work with this project.
And kudos to John for already building the relationship with Chapin and being in close contact to make sure that work is coordinated.
It's great. And I think the one thing that we learned between different large-scale downtown projects, we did a very good job last time when the circle was being reconfigured, of talking to businesses, and they responded really well to that. They knew the work schedule, they got updates when things were going to be closed, and they helped share it, and that was a really great relationship. We've had some past examples where we didn't do a great job of that, and it didn't go particularly well, and you know, the people ended up frustrating. So just positive encouragement and reinforcement for stuff I'm sure you're already thinking about.
So annual paving and resurfacing work. So working with accounting, it appears we have roughly $185,000 for budget this year, which is great. We do have some candidates already selected, mainly based on where we've done some utility repair work, and there's very poor paving conditions, so those are listed. We're currently selecting other candidates at this point. So part of this scope is also in the background, we're starting to put together that CIP program to make this a bit more routine, I'd say. So, you know, part of that CIP is trying to get roads on, you know, 15-year, 18-year cycle. So we're milling and filling them and being more strategic about how we resurface roadways, and even building in maybe a maintenance program to try to keep them alive a little bit longer with slurry mixes and crack sealing. So that's kind of what we're also working on in the background as we're looking at these potential road candidates. And with that, plugging that information into our asset management system and really trying to utilize that tool to help us better program road maintenance. So wastewater projects, you know, this one's a little more standard. It's an equipment replacement project, not that exciting, but we are replacing an undersized generator that's only feeding, you know, partially feeding our process system. So if that generator were to go down, or if we had an electrical issue and that generator had to be utilized, we could only use, you know, say our aeration system, and we'd have to forfeit some of our other processes. So not ideal for water quality and treatment process. So what we're looking to do is upsize that generator to a 150 kilowatt generator to be fed by natural gas instead of diesel power. Associated with that, we are replacing a boiler system that's also diesel and using a hot water system with natural gas. Along with this, we're also looking to try to utilize a GMT curtailment program so that during those peak energy hours, we could kick on the generator, and then potentially that could save us some funding on our utility bill. And then the larger project that we'll actually be talking about on the next item is our Headworks project. So this went to the bond vote, approved by the voters. This is a much needed improvement for our primary treatment system. So this will update our, you know, grinder pump grit removal system to a more modern mechanical bar screen. So we're not, you know, we don't have guys manually hand scraping bar screens, and not ideal. So this is also going to use a 2,000 square foot garage that will be tacked on to the facility to help store some of our sewer equipment and prolong the lives of those vehicles. So there's kind of two tracks for this project. The Headworks is a little more sophisticated design, so we're going to be starting design on that work, you know, this spring into the fall, and then hopefully start construction by the end of this season, in December. The garage is a little, you know, it's a little easier design, so we think we can start design and construction, you know, this summer and try to get that project wrapped up before the winter time. And then I won't read all these, but this is kind of our typical to-do lists for the summer. I will highlight, we are working to upgrade some of the downtown lighting in Rotary Park right now and some of the electrical service in Rotary Park. We've heard some feedback during events that that's required. So we're trying to get that expedited before waking windows and some of these bigger events take place. So they're actually out working now to get that resolved. But everything else is pretty typical public works activities that we do throughout the summer. There is one item, the downtown paver assessment. That's not a shovel in the ground type work, but we are starting to look at how do we address those paver issues in the downtown area. But other than that, any questions on, or any other tasks that we may be missing that we should add to the list?
I'm excited. The painting's a big one. If
Yeah.
we charge people to park in a spot, they should be able to see where the spot is.
Yep.
And the last couple of years, we've heard deployment of new bike racks, and I think there's a bunch hanging out somewhere. I know that's one that the public asks about from time to time. We had the big yellow one out at one point that had all those cool little fixture things when we did a multimodal tour like 2 years ago. So, but I don't think it's ever been deployed. Just a question. There's been some fun balance in that one time, I think. Angela's just looking at me. Any other questions, thoughts, comments for anybody? Want to make a pitch to Jonathan for their street?
Yeah. Putting the list together, right?
Do my street.
Okay. Any questions, concerns from the public?
Just one, I appreciate you talking about good neighbors, so I'm just assuming that you're thinking about notifying the hospital for ambulance transportation when you're doing the bridge, so we don't have those kind of problems.
Yep.
Thank you.
We'll notify them if they promise to notify us when they do large construction projects and bring massive things to the middle of the city and choose the city as their primary route for doing things as to not inconvenience Burlington residents. So we'll gladly make that exchange.
I think you should bring that up.
We will. Great partners. Thank you for doing this. It means a lot, I think, for people to know where their money's going every year. It certainly helps from a transparency perspective and for people to know what to expect. So thanks for the time and putting this together. I really appreciate it.
Sure.
And it's ambitious. Thanks for all the work
No problem.
in advance. And it'll all go perfectly and there'll be no surprises or unexpected hiccups.
Fingers crossed, yes.
That's right. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then we'll move right into consideration for approval of the Headworks State Revolving Loan Fund application for the Headworks project.
So this is actually a document you've seen a couple of times now. Every time we go to SRF for another round of funding for their phases, it's a 3-phase preliminary engineering, final design, construction phases. You have to, as the legislative body, sign off on the actual loan application. So this is the loan application for the $82,000 phase 2 part of the Headworks project that was approved by the voters through the bond vote on town meeting day.
Questions or concerns from council? Again, it's a document that the body itself has seen in a process that we kind of walked through. I know we do have 2 new members if you've got any questions, but it's part of the larger funding package we discussed that was approved as part of the bond vote. Questions or concerns? Any questions or concerns from the public? So seeing and hearing none, I entertain a motion for approval of the Headworks State Revolving Loan Fund application.
Second.
Motion by Eric, second by Christine. Any further discussion? Hearing seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next up is Tax Increment Financing District Agreed Upon Procedures Audit.
So Angela's here and can read you this whole audit document, but basically this is for our TIF district. We have agreed upon procedures that we are required to follow every year to appropriately implement the administration of it. We are then audited on how we meet those procedures by an independent body, and then our obligation in your financial authority capacity is to receive that audit. So no action is needed, but we need to present it to you. Thanks to Angela's great work, it is a clean audit with no unexpected findings.
No adjustments in
credit
how
goes to Angela.
OTV is calculated, no exciting things this year?
FY18 will be the first year where the new OTV is used. FY17 is the last year of the old OTV. So we'll
Okay.
see next year.
Right. Thank you for all of your work and the bouncing back and forth between auditors and state bodies and everything. I know it's a lot of work. People think that, you know, the downtown's done because the shovels aren't still out, but obviously it's still a lot of work on your behalf. So thanks very much for all you do for that. Are there questions in regards to the report that council received from the auditors? Obviously, the indication is that we're doing a good job, so.
Angela is doing a good job.
Yes. Any questions from council? So seeing and hearing none, any questions from the public in regards to the TIF agreed upon audit procedures? Alright, so seeing and hearing none, that was up as a discussion item. Thank you very much. And we'll move on to item I, which is the discussion of the International City Managers Association Retirement Corporation recommendation.
So I'm gonna invite Julie up to sit with me. I'll give a quick summary while she's coming up. So currently for our eligible employees, we offer a retirement plan. That's provided through one plan provided through 3 separate vendors. Julie and I and Angela over the last year have looked at that plan, heard some feedback from our employees that it's has some challenges, and so we've been exploring options to move to another provider. So tonight, as a discussion-only agenda item, we wanted to bring you the recommendation to move to what's called ICMARC, which is the International City Management Association Retirement Corporation's separate subsidiary that provides a retirement solution to over 1 million municipal employees across the country. It's the only one that solely provides to public sector municipal employees. There are 4 items that we'll need you to vote on if you decide to move forward with this recommendation at a future meeting, and those are outlined in your memo. And just to highlight a few goals we had in doing this, and then Julie can walk through kind of our process to date. We were looking for a plan that had expertise in providing municipal retirement systems, a plan that had a proven track record, and a plan that really improved, had better customer service. We really feel like our current plan does not provide the best benefit to our employees because there isn't that face-to-face on-site assistance in retirement planning and ensuring that our employees, while they're here, understand are investing appropriately, and specifically when they leave, feel like their families are taken care of. So those are our goals of the effort, and I'll turn over to Julie to talk about where we have been.
So our process to date, we've talked a lot with ICMA about how this will affect employees, and one really nice thing that they did for us was sort of show us their fees. So one benefit to employees is that their fees on investments are much, much lower. So the money that they retire with, they will keep more of it versus paying administrative costs. We presented that to the employees. We had 2 all-employee meetings where folks came, they could ask lots of questions. A couple of folks from ICMA came and explained the plan. And then we worked with our union to do an MOU to change this mid-contract. And they've agreed to do that and share in the cost savings as well. The response from employees was great. Most people walked out of the room and said, "Are we starting this now?" And just to sort of add to ICMA, my own experience with ICMA and having administered one of their plans in the past is that they are very high touch for your employees. They will call up the organization every 3 months, visit, meet with employees one-on-one, provide presentations on, just general topics on retirement. So my experience with them is that they will provide a level of customer service that our employees are not getting now.
There is one significant plan change that will be associated with this move that I just want to make sure we call out. Currently, under our current plan, people are allowed to do drawdowns against their retirement plan. That is used sporadically, but a bit. ICMA does allow loans from plans, but they have to be repaid. So that is a change in what our employees currently have access to. From a benefits theory perspective, we really believe that that's a positive change. The point of these dollars and this benefit is to allow for those dollars to be invested for the future care of our employees and their families. And with the ability to draw down the funds, we are not providing the intent behind that benefit to the same degree. Just wanted to make sure we called that out.
And we would be remiss if we didn't first take a second to acknowledge the newest member, I'm assuming, of the State Board of Ethics in her profession. So congratulations to Julie. That's an awesome achievement.
It's the first State Board of Ethics.
That's way to go. That's a great honor and reflective of everything we've seen in terms of who you are as a member of the staff. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Any questions, concerns from folks? I mean, it's been around since 1972. That's great. We're not changing the contribution. It actually results in a net negative. It's been vetted well with staff. Investment plans, even if you stay with the same people, change all the time. So you're probably going to get forced out whatever funds you really think are great anyway. And it sounds like the fees are lower. So I'm missing any setbacks. Anybody got a question or concern?
They already addressed Mark, so.
Questions, concerns? Is this going to require anything? Because functionally, it's the city will provide a retirement plan. We don't need to touch personnel policies, do we? We don't get that specific in there, I don't think.
I don't think there's language to change in the personnel policy, no.
Yeah.
No.
Okay. Okay, any other questions, concerns from council? Questions or concerns from the public? I'd like to see well taken care of, healthy, happy staff, so thank you for all your work to support that. Appreciate it. This honest discussion. Sounds like it's clear green to go for the next steps.
Okay, so we will bring it back to you for the next meeting for approval, and we do need your authorization for a number of documents.
Awesome.
We'll
Sounds
bring
like
it
a
back.
nice consent agenda package item.
Mhm.
Give them a laugh. Feedback.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And up last on tonight's
Thank you,
agenda, we
Julie.
have discussion and or approval for a resolution of basing F-35s at the Burlington International Airport. So following the last two meetings, the direction from council in the last meeting was to provide language back that hit a couple key bullet points. The first was reiterating support of the Guard and finding a mission for the Air National Guard at the Burlington International Airport, restating the fact that the city of Winooski, during the formal EIS process and subsequent to that as well, weighed in and essentially said there are a number of unanswered concerns and questions that we've asked that have actually not been answered to date either, in regards to the basing and its potential impact to our community. And as such, the city has consistently said we think Burlington should be passed over in this round of basing until those questions can be addressed or answered. And then the third kind of point was supportive of the effort that was going on in Burlington, which is really where this request came from. Just from a broader discussion standpoint, I believe South Burlington's taking up something similar this evening as well, and if not this evening, in their next meeting, from a conversation with their chair. So, I think the content speaks to itself. Any questions or concerns or thoughts or any places where I didn't reflect the interest of the council in terms of content or concerns?
I have one typo.
Oh boy.
That's all.
Oh, I see it too.
Yeah, subsequent
no.
suites against
Suites.
the Air Force.
Suits, should be suits and
Yeah.
suites.
At the top of the, or at the bottom of the next page.
Okay. It's on the second page, isn't it?
No, is it?
Wait,
First
Where-
page,
it's on the first page.
bottom of the first page.
Awesome. So in other words, we could,
Subsequent suites.
anybody catch anything else? Cause there may have only been one pair of eyeballs on this one.
I did see that, and I don't remember any others.
No, I don't remember
So,
any
I think that's the
others.
only
You're
one.
good.
I'm not gonna say what time of night this was written,
Yeah.
but it was.
All the thoughts are there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. So in light of that, I think you could take action to pass it with that adjustment, sign the second page, and we can clean up the first page.
Absolutely.
Questions or concerns?
I think this is pretty reflective of a number of different documents that's been passed out of this body.
Okay. We'll now open it up. Any questions, concerns from the public in regards to the resolution? Yes, Richard. Sure, sure.
Okay, should I go over here or just over here?
Mike, do you have a good audio?
Can you hear me if I do?
As long as he talks loud.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, 3 days before the recent vote in Burlington to request cancellation of the F-35 basing, I was arrested, along with others, for disorderly conduct, which is a criminal offense. So disorderly conduct generally means obnoxious public behavior. And we did an F-35 noise demonstration, 6 minutes in multiple locations in Burlington, and it was worse than obnoxious. It was a painful, oppressive, kind of sensory experience that was very unpleasant. We used an actual recording of F-35 noise, and from a truck, we blasted the recorded noise at a deafening 115 decibels. That's the same 115 decibels that the Air Force says Winooski residents will be subjected to repeatedly for the next 30 to 50 years as the planes take off over our city. So it's fair to say that most Burlington voters have never experienced the impact of 115 decibels of military jet noise. But but they had heard years of pro F-35 propaganda. So our purpose was to inform the voters. Now, the people who heard the demonstration were frankly shocked. Although we got a lot of thumbs up from people who knew exactly what we were doing and supported it. But some people came running out of their houses and then rushed back in and called the police. Others pleaded with us to please stop this noise. Some people became agitated, angry, or aggressive. And that response is very easy to understand because the noise at that level is toxic and it's correctly characterized as criminal. So I will no doubt receive appropriate punishment for my participation in that demonstration that day. But based on that demonstration, and of course many other things, I don't understand how a plan to subject people, including many vulnerable people, for years to sensory assault so destructive as to be criminal in any other context could ever be justified in a society in which people matter.
Thank you, Richard. Mr. Cross?
Hi. Is there a copy of the resolution that you're going to pass available?
Yes, it's in at winooskivt.org in tonight's package.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So we post those every Friday before the meeting. I think it's going to be voted upon. Questions? Yes?
I just want to, just a reminder that there is a healthcare facility right in Winooski, Our Lady of Providence, and when the ones go over right now, it's horrible. You can't hear a thing. You have to stop everything. If you're doing a treatment, you know, you have to reassure people it'll be just a few minutes. So I can't imagine with something like that. And also I remember when the initial study was done, the data that was used around health implications was like over 10 years old. We never use 10-year-old information for health. And so I think that, people were misled and we don't have an idea of what the repetitive, it's not that it's one time, it's the repetitive thing and what it does to your whole system. So just a reminder if that's, unfortunate, and if there was any way to stop it, it would be wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes?
There is a smaller plane that they could use, and it would take 3 pilots even, and that would give 2 more jobs for the pilots.
Right.
And they could even use that plane, which is the least noise, sometimes for sick people, and then they would need 10. And it's a safer plane than the F-35. So I can't understand how you don't want to take into consideration the people. Then they would be able to keep their homes, and the school would be all right, and the children would be safe and not have all this noise in their ears. We're here to serve the people, and I just don't know.
Thank you, Sister. Other comments, questions, concerns? Regards to the resolution?
One comment. I want to thank you for what you did. That was a stand-up thing to do. Appreciated it. I didn't hear it. I wasn't there. But I heard about it.
Yeah. Well, you're lucky you weren't there.
I know. With my grandchildren. It would have been awful.
Just one other quick point, and it's a suggestion that maybe the city council and city manager could look into. Last year, the legislature appropriated a sum of money, and I forgot how much it was, to Linden State College to buy sound recording equipment for windmills in particular. However, in speaking to the people that set that all up, that equipment is portable, could be used for other purposes, and I would suggest that you try to contact Senator John Rogers, who was one of the instigators of that, regardless of his current policies on other things, and see if there's some way. I don't even know whether the equipment was purchased or not, because there had to be some money raised to make it work. But if it was, if there's any way that equipment, so that apparently at Linden State College, there's a professor who's an expert in sound measurement. And to have some unbiased sound measurement, which we've had none, by the way, absolute zero. It seems to me it would be reasonable to try to do that.
And we did put that to George in our previous resolution from fall of 2016. That kind of gave our political marching orders for what we've been doing since that time. In asking the airport about that question, it was my understanding that there's very specified, specialized equipment that has to be used, because one of our proposals is for the money to be spent for baseline sound measurements to be done, so that if they're exceeded in the future beyond what's actually being modeled, that be reflected correctly.
I understand that, but trusting the Air Force to do anything is like trusting Donald Trump to do it.
Other questions, thoughts, or concerns germane to this issue? Okay, so seeing and hearing none, if nothing further from the council, I entertain a motion for approval of the resolution for basing at F-35 at the Burlington International Airport.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Hal, second by Christine. Any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, motion carries. And we will deliver a copy of that to the Secretary of the Air Force and CC our congressional delegation, as well as our two committees that we've discussed this with. And with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion by Eric, second by Nicole. Any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, motion carries. So we made up